Today, the California Interscholastic Federation announced its revised sports calendar for the 2020-2021 school year, pushing back the start of high school sports until December. 23 ABC Sports Director Carrie Osep joins us live with more on the decision and the initial reaction about the delayed start. And Carrie, I'm assuming you and many other people are excited to just hear that sports are coming back.
Hey Jess, that's absolutely true. I can't wait for the day that we see a packed crowd here in the parking lot for Centennial football games and other sports returning. But of course, that decision today by the CIF was to be expected, as many were expecting that they were going to announce the delayed start to the high school sports season. And that's going to start no earlier than December. But then the Central section followed up that news with their own announcement that Kern County teams will have to look forward to their own season starting at specific times due to their sports, along with other Central section teams. But despite the delayed start, I can say that there was an overall sense of relief from the coaches that I was able to speak to today, knowing that sports should be returning this year.
We had kids even ask me about, moving out of state and going playing ball. I told them to do it if we weren't going to have a season, So it's nice that they get to stay here and enjoy their season.
Yes, fortunately for the recent state champions, a season is set to be played with football officially kicking off on January 7th, with practices only starting on December 14th and no time for typical preseason conditioning.
So staying in shape's one thing, but those football reps, you worry about that stuff, and if we have enough time to get them ready, we're just gonna have to adapt. We'll just take our regular schedule the best we can, and We'll just change the names of the months, you know what I mean?
The other fall sports, cross country, volleyball, and water polo, will begin their seasons on December 28th, while the rest of the winter and spring sports will all start in March. This leaves uncertainty for multi-sport athletes, which North High Athletic Director and boys basketball coach AJ Sheeran says is something they will encourage, but it could become an issue.
I'm just worried more about the toll that could take on the kid when they're balancing, obviously, academics as the primary focus, but then also moving to their sport that they might consider their primary sport, but also not wanting to give up what they might consider their secondary sport. I think that's my concern, is how that'll impact our kids.
I also spoke with the new commissioner of the CIF Central Section, Ryan Toss, who is just 3 weeks on the job. He was hoping that this plan would bring some sense of peace for coaches, athletes, and their parents.
High school sports are such an essential part of the experience, in my opinion. And so I was quite concerned, is this the right way? Second guessing most everything. And that's the biggest challenge for me to overcome. As far as the actual nuts and bolts of it, I think it's definitely the decision of, a 2-season model versus a 3-season model.
With that 2-season model in place, there is no reduction in how many games are being played.
It's not a perfect plan. I don't think there is a perfect plan for this situation, but I think it's a plan that does provide a lot of opportunities for a lot of our student athletes.
For a football program like Bakersfield Christian, fresh off that championship-winning season, the motivation to compete is still right there.
I think this high that we're coming off of, winning the Valley Championship, winning the state championship, from what I've seen from our kids, is they're ready to go.
All teams will now wait to see when they are clear to begin off-season workouts together before December practices begin. The Kern High School District has said that athletes and teams will not be allowed on campus until all students will be allowed back on campus. So, Jess, we know that date will not come until around October, which they're going to be looking forward to that to see if they can come back for practices.
Oh, yeah. And then the other question, Carrie, I know that you mentioned multi-sport athletes have had difficulty trying to decide which sport to play, but is there still a possibility of them being able to play multiple sports with the seasons all being stacked together and pushed back?
Yes, so that is going to be a challenge for those athletes, and it's going to be a decision, I guess, being made by those schools or the individual coaches, as well as those individual athletes, to see if they can handle all of that. As you heard AJ Sheeran saying, if these athletes can handle the toll of all that work, then they should be able to do that, but we'll have to wait and see how that happens. But the other big news today, Jess, was that athletes who play in club sports will also be allowed to play in those other teams during the high school sports season, and that's something that the CIF has not allowed until this year. So obviously this pandemic is kind of changing things, but again, that will be a big decision. But there will also be a little bit of a tug of war of which these priorities these athletes will take, whether it will be the high school seasons or their club sports season. So yeah, still a lot to look out for, but again, we are excited to know that sports should be making their return. We'll just have to see how soon and if we can see sports come back in December, which is what I'm hoping for. But live on Centennial, I'm Carrie Osep. I'll send it back to you, Jess.
All right, Carrie, thanks for that.